Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'll be reviewing Cuckoo. So Cuckoo is a new horror thriller starring Hunter Schafer, and this is another film coming from Neon just off the heels of Longlegs, so I was really excited to check this one out and see if they could follow up on that momentum. I have to say, at least for me, they have another solid film on their hands. I will say I am going to go into some spoilers on this one, so if you don't want to know anything about it, I would click off now. And honestly, I would recommend for this movie really going into it blind. I'd only seen one trailer for it, and I do think going into it not knowing what to expect made it that much more enjoyable for me. So to go into a quick synopsis of the story, we have a young woman named Gretchen who's played by Hunter Schafer, and she is moving in with her father. And the film takes place sometime after the passing of her mother, so she's really struggling to deal with that trauma, and that's kind of a theme that's throughout the whole film. She plays a very angsty individual. I have to say there was a lot more teenage angst in this movie than I expected, and I think it works really well blended with the themes and kind of the overall horror of the movie itself. And moving in with her father, her life is totally uprooted because her father's family is moving to the German Alps. He's helping a mysterious man named Herr Koenig, who's played by Dan Stevens, who's trying to set up this very interesting nature preserve kind of resort. He already has one there that they had helped with previously a few years ago, and now he's there to kind of set up a new, grander scheme for his overall plan. And there's some really strange things happening at this resort. No one is really around this resort after 10 p.m. There's women that are suffering from mysterious illnesses, and Hunter Schafer's character is really struggling to come to grips with what's happening. She feels like she's the only person that's noticing how crazy these things are, and I think as the audience you can really connect with the character because as you're seeing it, you're like, this is insane, this is wild, and everyone else is trying to act like it's totally normal. And I think in many ways that plays into the idea of growing up and being a teenager, going through traumatic events. Some older adults may think your problems aren't that big, or that, you know, maybe they can't relate to what you're going through, and I think this movie kind of encapsulates that while also putting a horror lens over it of things actually being totally wild by the end. I think that Hunter Schafer gives a phenomenal performance as Gretchen. Like I said, she is kind of a moody teen, so I do think some people might find her character a little bit annoying or a little bit frustrating, but I think playing through her experiences through the film and her growth and development and her connection with her family really shine by the end, and that's really a testament to her performance in particular. There's also a lot of physical acting in this movie. It has some elements of body horror, not a lot. There is some gore in this one, but her struggling to fight back against kind of the evil forces that are in play in this film are pretty well done. I think she does a solid job of adding to kind of her horror catalog. Obviously, she's mostly known as playing Jules in Euphoria, and I think she's phenomenal in that series, and she brings that over into this film. I think the other standout in this film is actually Dan Stevens as Herr Koenig. I can tell he is having a ton of fun in this movie. I think he did a great job in Abigail earlier this year, so he's really kind of flexing his ability to play very strange and interesting characters. This movie plays this very mysterious and creepy German guy who's basically, like I said, running this resort and also running this secret operation behind the scenes. He's a conservationist, and this is where I'm going to kind of go into a little bit more spoilers of the film, what happens with the big reveal of what the actual evil thing is in the story. And kind of the big reveal of what's happening is that this resort is used for conserving this mysterious creature that exists. It's kind of a blend of a human with the abilities of like a cuckoo bird. That's kind of hence the name of the film. The creature kind of looks like this slightly uncanny woman. She doesn't look quite like a monster, but when you get close-up visions, you see everything's just a little bit off. Her facial features are a little bit strange, and she has this ability to create a vocalization that basically stuns people. It throws them into kind of a almost like a time loop where they can't understand what's happening and they keep replaying the events over and over and over in their head. And I think that was a unique way of showing confusion on screen. It was, I will say, by the end, when you see it by the, the third or fourth time, it does feel like a little bit frustrating. We kind of understand what's happening, but I do think it's a unique way they did that, particularly when they set it up in the first scene. And I do think there's one sequence in this film that is so well done that involves the creature, and it has Hunter Schafer riding her bike through the darkness trying to get back home, and she doesn't know that she's being chased and being kind of stalked by this monster. And I think the use of kind of the audience seeing it happening and we're knowing it's happening, but it still has the ability to kind of startle you, I think was really well done. The movie as a whole, I wouldn't say is particularly scary. It does feel like how I felt when I watched Longlegs, that the atmosphere of it is scarier than the actual events on screen. There are a few jump scenes in this one that will get kind of most people when they're watching it, but I think as a whole, it's not a particularly scary movie. It's more disturbing than anything. I'm always a sucker for horror movies that can blend the idea of nature's beauty with the horror of mankind, and this movie does a really good job of doing that, blending kind of those two things together, creating an almost clinical horror that takes place in this very picturesque setting. And I think by the end of the film, the kind of themes of family and coming together are really well done. We're showing a character that is struggling to adapt to their new environment. They don't really care about their family. They don't care about their half sister. She kind of just throws them to the side and doesn't want to take care of them or be a sister to them. But by the end, they come together in a very interesting way because of the reveal of what's going on with her sister. I won't go into that spoiler, but I do think that the way that it executed by the end really does pay off on that theme of her coming full circle and kind of accepting to move on from what she's experienced and the loss of her mother. I also really enjoyed the overall cinematography of this film. There's a lot of use of wide angle lenses to create kind of a idea of immersion in this movie. And I do think there's some really clever and well executed shots. In particular, like I said, that scene involving her in the bike in the dark. I do think there's one element of this movie that both helps and hurts it, and that's kind of the reveal of this creature. It's revealed fairly early on in this film. You don't fully know what it is, but it turns into a monster movie very quickly, when a lot of movies kind of like to bury that. And I think for general audiences, you kind of like to see the thing early. We want to have it early and often because it is creepy looking and interesting to look at, but it kind of takes away just a little bit of the tension, and it quickly turns from kind of a monster movie into kind of almost like a detective film, and then it turns into like a big shoot 'em up by the end. It is pretty interesting how it kind of transitions between those genres, but I do think it can make it feel just a little bit slow at times, particularly in kind of that middle third. I also don't think the film does the best job of explaining exactly what's happening by the end of the movie for general audiences. I came out of it pretty much understanding it for the most part. I saw a lot of criticism about people saying it was really confusing and they found it boring because they didn't really understand what was happening by the end, and it just felt like kind of a fever dream. I could totally understand that. I guess if you go into it with the expectation that it is going to be a little bit strange like I did, I was able to follow it a little bit better. I was really able to hone in and focus on the themes and the characters and what's being told to me on the screen. So I never felt fully lost, but I fully understand how people could feel that way, particularly by the end with how strange it does get. So overall, if I were to rate Cuckoo, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's one of the better films I've seen this year. There's been some really interesting and unique horror movies this year, which I love. I love seeing this wide range of films, whether it be like a more traditional Quiet Place action horror to things like Longlegs or Cuckoo or these bloody messes like Abigail. I love seeing all of it, so it's so exciting going in to, like the spooky season that we get these movies, and I'm excited to see what's coming down the pike. So if you end up checking out Cuckoo, let me know what you thought about it. I always love to hear people's opinions, particularly if you didn't like it as much as me. This is a movie where I think people could go into it and like absolutely hate it. So I would love to hear what you think if you didn't enjoy it. If you liked it as much as me, make sure to let me know. And how does it compare to Longlegs for you if you checked out that movie? I know they're obviously not related and they're not really anything to compare to one another, but I do think, it's a neon horror movie that just came out recently. We got another neon horror movie. So how did those two compare? Always love to hear those opinions. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. See you guys next time.